So, Tawakkul is showing up when your nafs whispers, "What's the point?" It's trusting that Allah will either grant you what you're seeking or protect you with something better. And here's the truth: most brothers want marriage, fitness, or career success immediately, but those who win are the ones who stay consistent long enough for Allah's plan to unfold. A lot of people think tawakkul means just making dua and waiting, but true tawakkul means tying your camel, doing your part, and then leaving the rest to Allah. It's showing up even when your nafs whispers, "What's the point?" It's trusting that Allah will either give you what you're seeking or protect you with something better. Okay, so we're going to discuss this today. And this is something that I think is really, really important because sometimes one thing I've noticed, especially as I'm kind of building this business, is people will watch, they'll either be watching or they'll want to do something, they'll want to achieve something. But the reality is, they reach a certain point in their journey. And I'm going to talk about this, like the three different types of people. And this is what happens with a lot of people, right? And I've seen this so many times. I've been doing this fitness, I guess not it's fitness, this coaching thing for about a year now. And here's where most people go wrong. They quit too quickly, right? Some people start, there's like, I always say there's different types of people. So there's people who start really fast, but as soon as they hit an obstacle, they give up. They're like, oh, this is too hard. They realize it's a lot harder than they think, right? Other people will stick around for a while, right? They may be a little slower, but when the results start to come slower or it doesn't show up, then that's when they decide to walk away. They're like, oh, this is not worth it, right? They don't stick with it long enough for it to like actually, for them to actually get some data or see like, okay, what works, what doesn't work, right? And I think a lot of people fall into this, right? Where it's like, boom, right? I struggle with, this is like the one thing I struggle with, right? Like things don't come fast to me. So when I don't see results, I just, I just feel like, oh, what's the point, right? But then there's the other person who keeps going through obstacles, through silence, through setbacks. Okay. So this is someone who just keeps going. This is something I've learned in the last year or so, like building this business. It's like, because before I used to start stuff, I used to try different things and I would just like, I would start quick, I would build, but I would never test it out and see how the market would react, or I would never just put myself out there like that. Or if I did it for a couple of weeks, right? So here's the thing. That's the type of person Tawakkul builds, someone who ties their camel every single day and trusts Allah with the outcome. And this is something that, again, I've had to learn myself. Like this is something that I'm still figuring out. I'm still working on it one day at a time. But the more I'm doing it, the more it's starting to make sense. And it's, I'm starting to reach a pattern where it's like, okay, you had an off day, you didn't see much results today. Okay, just keep going, just keep trying, right? Because you just never know, right? That this is what's what good. You don't know your outcome. You don't know what the end goal is. But you go into it just understanding that, okay, well, it's like the bird that goes to seek their whatever they want to eat, right? They don't know where they're gonna get it, but they have that conviction and they have that, like they're convinced that they are gonna be fed, right? So that's super, super important. And how do you avoid this, like the loops of being stuck, right? Tying your camel also means being smart. It's not all about repeating the same thing endlessly and expecting results. That's just being stuck. And this is where a lot of people go wrong, right? People like they'll 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 try the same thing. They'll be doing the exact same thing for months, maybe even years. And then they'll ask themselves, like I've seen people who will go to the gym, right? And every time I see them, they look the exact same. Now, of course, everyone has different goals, everyone has different aspirations. For myself, like I'm not trying to be the biggest person at the gym. I try to maintain my leanness. But what I mean by that is I see people that are out of shape. And whenever I see them, they're like, yeah, I need to work my belly. I'm like, well, you've been at the gym for years. What's been going on? You're not achieving your goals. But the reality is they haven't made a shift. They haven't done a self audit on themselves. They haven't identified what their gaps are, what they need to learn, what should they double down on. And when you don't do that, then you're going to stay stuck. And that's why you see people that will post on social media, or people that will build a business, or people that will, again, like I said, get in shape, or people that will be in their marriage journey, whatever it is, right? And they will feel stuck for a long, long time because they don't take the time to do a self audit and just understand what their gaps are. And this is something that we need to understand, right? Output is important, taking the action is key, But at the end of the day, if you're putting in the wrong outputs, then it's just gonna lead you to nowhere, right? That's why it's good to ask Allah for guidance all the time as well, because at the end of the day, whatever action we take, a lot of times we don't know, right? I'm doing this business. A lot of times I'm like, there's parts of it that I'm learning, that I'm understanding, but a lot of times I'm just kind of going into it with the hope that Allah will guide me to whatever it is I'm trying to get to, right? And that's the balance, right? Put in consistent effort, make the right pivots, which is super, super key. A lot of people don't do enough of, and leave the rest to Allah. Okay. And then I'll even like talk about like in terms of like my fitness journey, right? So I started working on, I think back in 2013, if I'm correct. So it took me 3 years to understand form. There was a time when my form was like my biggest roadblock, and I was just trying to figure out my form. And I remember when I would work out, I would get injured in my forearm, right? My forearm here, I'd get injured here like all the time because my form was just not very good. I remember there's one person who would come to me, and he's like, yeah, I see you at the gym. He kind of looked like me too. It's funny. He's a lot older. He's probably like 40s or 50s. He's like, yeah, I see you at the gym. I see you putting the work. Keep going, And he would always like correct my form and help me with my form. It took me 3 years, and it actually took me actually hiring a personal trainer to actually help me with my form. Once I learned, it never went away. I started to fully understand form, and I rarely get injured. Like, of course, like sometimes our bodies are different, right? Sometimes like I had a shoulder thing for a bit, but now alhamdulillah it's gone a lot better, right? Then I realized, okay, well now I know form. I feel like I'm getting there. I can go to the gym pretty much on autopilot, but now I still feel like I'm still too skinny, right? So that's when I learned nutrition, and I learned about tracking, right? Tracking my calories, tracking my macros. And funnily enough, that's when I started to actually see the results, and I started to actually go a lot harder. And then a little bit later, I started to find my routine. I started to find things that I actually enjoyed, because I realized that if you just go to the gym just to go to the gym, then you're not really going to see much. You're not going to be consistent. But if you go to the gym and you do things that you actually enjoy, then you'll find things that you enjoy, right? So again, tracking was a huge part of it. And again, without tracking, I wouldn't have seen the patterns. So remember, like I said, you're doing a self audit. Tracking is a self audit, right? If you're not tracking, like someone would say, if you're not tracking, you're slacking. And that's something that I've actually started doing in my own business, where I'm actually starting to track like my outputs, right? What I'm doing. It's not because, oh, like I'm trying to see like, oh, this and that, like trying to get all the numbers, but I just want to see like, okay, am I putting in as much output, like is my output as efficient as it should be, right? Because sometimes if you're not seeing the results, it could also just be maybe you're not putting your attention into the right areas, right? So that's why tracking is so important, especially when it comes to foods. Even with like one of my clients, my community clients, there's a thing where we have a compliance tracker. And I noticed that there was like, I think a few 2 or 3 weeks where we didn't use our compliance tracker because we hired different coaches. And what happened there was, because we didn't use a compliance tracker, we noticed there was a higher churn rate, which means that more people were leaving, right? And we were like, okay, what's going on? But once we checked the compliance tracker, we're like, oh, okay, this person hasn't showed up. This person hasn't showed up. This person hasn't showed up. So it makes a huge difference when you know what's going on, right? Now, of course, that's a big thing, right? So, but again, like with my fitness journey, if I had quit in year one, but if I quit in year one because I wasn't seeing results, right? I would have never transformed. And that's why Tire Camel and leaving the rest to Allah is so powerful. You just keep going, keep learning, and results come when the time is right. Again, this is like for me too, like something I'm actually learning myself when it comes to business. I think business is probably like the next obstacle that I'm currently tackling. And it's not easy, I'll be honest with you. Like it just day by day, there's always obstacles, there's always things to learn. But what I realize is every single day you just do something, right? With business, like I said, it's been the same. It's been progressing a lot, alhamdulillah, but it's taken me time. Right now I've grown a little bit of following on Instagram. It's actually funny, like my Instagram has definitely grown like a lot in the last few few weeks. And I would say it's just a matter of doing the right outputs, right? Putting in the right outputs. And yeah, you can't see my face there. It's all good. Putting in the right outputs and then kind of going from there. So That's something I've realized. The key is just keep trying, keep learning, keep iterating, double down what works, and then that's just tie your camel, leaving the rest of Allah. So now imagine applying this to marriage, right? Instead of rushing, instead of doubting yourself, you move with clarity. You work on your health, you stay aligned with your deen, and you build confidence in yourself and in the process. And that's what it means to prepare for marriage with tawakkul, right? You tie your camel, you keep showing up, and you trust that Allah will send what's written for you at the right time. So this is your focus right now. I've created two ways to help you. And if now, well, actually, no. Let me before I go. Let me say this one thing here. When you're gonna go through this journey, you're gonna hear a lot of noise. You're gonna hear a lot of people say, "Oh, well, why you want to do this? Why you do that?" Right? When I was in my fitness journey, people would always tell me like straight, like people would always tell me, "Oh, you're a gym guy now. You're a gym guy now. Okay, okay." Or they'd be like, "Oh, you're not working out hard enough." Or even to this day, because I'm not like the biggest person, right? I like to stay lean. I like to do a lot of cardio. So a lot of people like you can tell when someone doesn't work out when or people don't understand fitness when they think it's all about aesthetic. So they're like, oh, like it doesn't look like you go to the gym. Like, yeah, but I do different things. So remember, there's gonna be a lot of noise when you're going through this, but the key is you just have to make sure that you understand that why you're doing what you're doing, right? Anyways, so if you want one-on-one support, check out the link below to work with me directly. I'll guide you step by step to build the clarity, discipline, and spiritual grounding you need to prepare for marriage, and not just marriage, but also like fitness and business, right? Or if you're just starting out, get my free marriage readiness guide. It covers internal, which I haven't talked about, financial and spiritual preparation to help you start the process the right way. Now remember, tie your camel, stay consistent, and leave the rest to Allah. Assalamu alaikum.